Hey guys, just a quick update video here. As you remember, the last video I made, I was pretty upset about that nasty resin I was using. I did find a solution for fixing the bottom portion of the wing where the resin hasn't cured by getting pretty creative with some acetone, paper towel, and a ton of sanding. I was able to get that area relatively smooth. It was still tacky and gooey, but it was smooth. Then I went over it with the leftover Bob Smith adhesives that I like to use. I didn't actually use that. That's 5-minute epoxy. But oh, what a fiasco. So the bottom of the wing, pardon my language, is fucked. I mean, it looks like the rolling hills of Iowa. It's nasty because of that crap resin that I was using. I mean, it's bad. So, went back to the good stuff, but this time I did not go with Bob Smith. My good old buddy Chuck Hamilton said Z-Poxy. Now, I've used Z-Poxy in the past. I've always been a fan of Bob Smith. I mean, I like their CA. I've been using it since I was a kid. I've always used it. I've used Zap off and on throughout the years, and it's been okay. You know, I never had any problems with it. So this time, I went online to order some resin because I used up the last of my Bob Smith because I wasn't planning on using it anymore. I was going to use that glaze coat crap. Well, I needed to find some resin. I found a pretty good deal on some Z-Poxy. So, Chucky, this is for you, man. Back to the Z-Poxy. And now the last time I used Z-Poxy for glassing an airplane was for a very large Focke-Wulf that I built. Oh man, it's been a long time. Been over 10 years now. It was completely scratch built from enlarged Valancourt plans. One flight wonder. Lost it on the first flight right after takeoff because of crappy batteries, which is why I don't use NiCads or nickel metal anymore. But I glassed that airplane completely with Z-Poxy. Oop, don't look, we're not ready yet. But since then, I've glassed quite a few airplanes, one of them being the Top Flight Mustang, that's all Bob Smith, and my Panther, that's all Bob Smith. And so far, the majority of the Mustang has been done in Bob Smith, the Bud Nosen, that is. But now let's take a look at what the Z-Poxy looks like. You can kind of see some streaks in there from where I was using the expired credit card as a squeegee. But that is pretty darn smooth. Pretty smooth. You get a couple spots where you get some fisheye going on. You know, that's anytime you're laying out a resin like that without thinning it, there's always the possibility for fisheye. You know, not that big a deal. Oh, and the doors, the reason they're sitting here is because, you know, why not? I didn't even glass them. I just put some resin over them. So I'll give that a light sand and that's good to go. So, the way I put a flow coat on a surface like this, or any surface for that matter, is I start by using just one of these cheap chip brushes from Menards or Harbor Freight or wherever, and I brush the resin on the areas like the wingtips, leading edges, around areas like this where I don't want resin to get in here. And if I'm using a squeegee, it's extremely easy for the resin to kind of ooze and go into an area I don't want it to. So I hit all that area with the brushes, you know, leading edge, trailing edge, because I don't want to get a bunch of resin back here. So, you know, it's all brush about to here and from here to here, all the way around the perimeter. And then I mix up roughly the amount of resin that I need. And I'll just pour it on, pour a little bit of it on, and take the credit card as a squeegee and just kind of trowel it on, go back and forth. I got a little bristle from the brush right there. That's funny. And the reason for using the squeegee is it really puts the thinnest amount of resin possible on the surface. So there are some areas where there's a little bit of weave poking through, and that's fine because the high build primer is going to fill that in anyway. Now if I was to brush this entire wing, I would have used probably 2 or 3 times the amount of resin that it took to do just this flow coat right here. And just to give you an idea, this was a brand new bottle. That's how much I used to do a flow coat unthinned on just the top of the wing. So that's what I was meaning before about using the good stuff is expensive, because it takes a lot of it. But I mean, what time is it right now? Almost 10 o'clock. I know. Badass, right? Anything to do with Byron Originals, I gotta have it. I was not expecting the Z-Poxy to come in. Oh man, furnace is kicking on. And a cat's taking a crap. Awesome. So I laid this down about 5 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock now, and look at that. It is dry. Not dry enough to sand, but if the bottom wasn't already done, I could flip the wing over and do the bottom. I mean, just a few hours and it's dry. So comparing the Z-Poxy to the Bob Smith, I think the Z-Poxy resin actually spreads easier if you're using the card method, or the squeegee method as we like to call it. So I think I'm going to stick with Z-Poxy for actually glassing from now on. But you never know, my mind could change. It does quite often. So before the blower kicks on in the furnace, I'm going to wrap this up. Now I'll be able to get this in primer this weekend. As soon as I get the control surfaces attached and the panel lines and everything put on the wing, I'll bring you back. Later.